A little boy points at a police officer in court. What he said left everyone speechless. Visual cue. Dimly lit courtroom. Sunlight slicing through half-closed blinds. A nervous crowd watching as a small boy sits on the witness stand clutching a worn teddy bear. The hum of whispers fill the courtroom like bees trapped inside glass. Every creak of the wooden benches echoed too loudly. Every breath carried weight. People weren't just here for justice. They were here for a story, one that had gripped the town of Maplewood for months. At the center of it all sat a little boy, 7 years old, dark curls hanging over his eyes, hands trembling as he held his mother's hand. His name was Eli Turner, and today, he was the only witness in a case that had shattered the town's faith in its own protectors. Across the room, in his crisp uniform, sat Officer Daniel Brooks, tall, broad-shouldered, mid-40s, his badge gleaming but his face pale. He wasn't just any officer. He was one of Maplewood's most respected, known for rescuing lost children, stopping robberies, and even helping old ladies cross streets. He had never been accused of anything like this. Until now. The case? The shooting of Eli's father, Mark Turner, a mechanic husband, and by all accounts, a good man. The police report had called it a tragic misunderstanding. But when witnesses began to contradict the official version, rumors ignited like wildfire. And then came the shocker. Eli, barely old enough to tie his own shoes properly, had told investigators he saw what really happened. Visual cue. Camera zooms on Eli's small hands gripping the edge of the witness chair, his knuckles white. The judge, an older woman with glasses perched low on her nose, looked down kindly. "Eli's sweetheart," she said softly. "Do you remember why you're here today?" Eli nodded, his lips trembling. "To tell the truth," he whispered. The court reporter's fingers tapped like raindrops on glass. Every adult in the room leaned forward, breath held. His mother, Rachel Turner, sat only a few feet away, her face a mosaic of strength and sorrow. She hadn't slept properly in months, and it showed. The dark circles under her eyes were deep as bruises. Across the aisle, Officer Brooks sat perfectly still, but the veins on his hands pulsed visibly. His attorney whispered something, but Brooks didn't respond. His gaze never left the boy. Visual cue, slow pan between the officer's tense face and the boy's frightened one. The prosecutor, a lean man with tired eyes, approached the stand. "Eli, can you tell us what you remember about the night your dad..." He paused gently. "The night your dad went away?" Eli looked down at his shoes. "It was raining," he said softly. "Dad was fixing the car again. Mommy told him to come inside. But then, he stopped. Tears gathered at the corners of his eyes. The courtroom felt smaller suddenly. Everyone leaning closer, afraid to breathe. "It's okay, Eli," the prosecutor said. "Take your time." Eli sniffed, clutching his teddy tighter. Then a police car stopped outside. The lights were really bright. Dad went to the window. He looked worried. I saw him open the door. He said, "Evening, officer." He swallowed, and then I heard shouting. Visual cue. Flashback overlay. Rain-soaked night. Flashing police lights. A man standing in the doorway with his hands raised. Eli's voice trembled. Dad said, "You've got the wrong house." And the man, the officer, said something about a suspect. Daddy told me to hide, but I didn't. I stayed right by the stairs. Now, even the defense lawyer was still. Eli's next words cracked the silence, open like glass. Then the officer shot him. The room gasped. A woman near the back began to cry. Rachel Turner pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking. The defense attorney jumped up. "Objection! The witness is a child. This testimony is unreliable." "Overruled," said the judge, calm but firm. "Let the boy finish." Visual cue. Judge raises a hand, silencing the room. Eli looked straight ahead now. Daddy fell. He tried to say something. The officer, he looked scared. He kept saying, "He had a gun. He had a gun." But Daddy didn't. He was holding my toy car. That sentence hit harder than any bullet. Even Officer Brooks closed his eyes for a moment, his jaw tightening. The prosecutor stepped closer. "Eli," he said gently, "do you see the man who shot your dad here today?" Eli hesitated. The courtroom air thickened. All eyes were on the little boy. Then, slowly he turned, his finger lifting, small and trembling, and pointed straight at Officer Brooks. Visual cue. Close-up shot. Boy's finger pointing, crowd frozen, officer's face pale. Whispers exploded like sparks. The judge banged her gavel. "Order. Order in the court." But before the noise could die down, Eli said something no one expected. "He's not the bad man," Eli whispered. The room froze again. Even the judge blinked. "What did you say?" the prosecutor asked. Eli looked down, voice shaking. "He shot Daddy, but he's not the bad man." Visual cue. Pan to Officer Brooks' confused, almost haunted face. Now, confusion rippled through the courtroom. The jurors glanced at each other. The defense attorney leaned forward, stunned. "Eli," the prosecutor said softly, "can you tell us what you mean?" Eli nodded slowly. "There was another man. I saw him through the window. He was behind the police car. He had a gun too. He was aiming at Daddy." A murmur spread through the crowd. The prosecutor's brow furrowed. "Another man? Are you sure?" "Yes," Eli said. "When the officer shot Daddy, the other man ran away. I think the officer wasn't shooting at Daddy. He was shooting at that man, but Daddy was in the way." The defense attorney stood, his voice shaking. "Your Honor, we need a recess." But the judge raised a hand. "No, continue." Eli's mother looked up now, her eyes wide in shock. She had never heard this detail before. The prosecutor cleared his throat. "Eli, how do you know this?" "Because," Eli said, "I saw the man's face in a flash. He looked like the officer." The prosecutor froze. "He looked like the officer?" "Yes," Eli said quietly, "like his twin." Now the courtroom erupted again. Visual cue, murmuring crowd, journalists scribbling notes, Rachel looking confused and afraid. The judge banged her gavel again, her voice sharp. Silence. But nothing could stop the current of disbelief running through the room. The defense lawyer whispered something urgently to Officer Brooks. The officer sat there, stone still. His breathing had changed, shallow, fast. "Eli," the prosecutor said carefully, "are you saying the man who shot your father wasn't Officer Brooks, but someone who looked like him?" Eli nodded. He had the same eyes. "Same uniform?" "Yes, but his shirt was dirty and his badge was broken." Visual cue. Flashback overlay. Two figures in the rain. One in clean uniform, one in torn, muddy clothes. The judge leaned forward, staring at Brooks. "Officer, is there something you want to tell this court?" Brooks finally spoke. His voice was deep, gravelly, and heavy with something older than guilt. "There is," he said quietly. Every camera turned toward him. He rose from his seat slowly, eyes glistening under the fluorescent lights. "I wasn't supposed to be there that night," he began. "I was off duty. But I went because I got a call from dispatch. Said there was a break-in at the Turner residence. Only, I never radioed back." He took a breath. "When I got there, the house was quiet. I saw another cruiser parked outside, but I didn't recognize the number. I thought backup had arrived. Then I saw a movement near the porch. I shouted a warning, and everything happened so fast." He paused. "I thought I hit the suspect. I didn't know I hit your father." Rachel covered her mouth with trembling hands. "But there was another man," Brooks said. "And yes, he looked like me." The judge frowned. "Explain yourself, officer." Brooks lowered his gaze. "My brother, my twin brother, David." Gasps filled the courtroom again. Visual cue. Shocked crowd. Defense attorney burying his face in his hands. Rachel frozen in disbelief. Brooks continued, his voice breaking. "David was discharged from the force years ago for misconduct. Drugs. Theft. I hadn't seen him in months. He called me the night before. Said he was in trouble. I didn't know how much. I thought I could help him quietly. Clean up whatever mess he'd made before it got worse." He swallowed hard. "But I never imagined he'd use my uniform to commit a robbery, or that he'd run into your father's home." Eli stared at him, eyes wide, trying to piece it together. The courtroom had fallen into stunned silence, except for the sound of the rain starting outside. Visual cue. Thunder rumbles softly outside, reflections of rain on courtroom windows. I saw him that night, Brooks continued, his voice trembling. He pointed a gun at me at the house. I don't even remember aiming. I just reacted. By the time I realized what I'd done, it was too late. He looked at Eli. I'm so sorry, son. The boy's lip quivered. He looked at his mother, then back at the officer. Rachel stood, her voice shaking. Why didn't you say something before? Brooks' shoulders sagged. Because no one would believe me. The only proof was gone. My brother disappeared that night. The department buried the case fast. Said it was a clean shoot. And He paused, his voice breaking. I was too much of a coward to fight it. Tears streamed down Rachel's cheeks. The judge, for once, looked shaken too. Visual cue. Wide shot courtroom. Silence thick. Eyes filled with disbelief. The prosecutor's tone softened. Officer Brooks, do you have any proof of your brother's involvement? Brooks nodded weakly. 2 weeks ago, I found something. A storage locker under his name. Inside were stolen items, jewelry, cash, and my old badge, the one I lost before that night. He turned to his lawyer, who opened a folder and handed something to the judge. Photographs, time-stamped evidence. Gasps rippled through the room as the images were passed around. One showed a man identical to Brooks, wearing a dirty police shirt and holding a gun. Another showed a stack of stolen goods. It was undeniable. Visual cue. Montage of photos displayed on courtroom screen. Jurors covering mouths in shock. The judge leaned back, stunned. We'll recess for 30 minutes, she said, voice trembling. Court is adjourned. Her gavel struck like thunder. Visual cue. Gavel slams. Camera pan to Eli hugging his mother. People began to file out slowly, whispering. Reporters rushed for their phones. Brooks sank back into his chair, tears streaking down his face. Rachel turned to him. Anger, sorrow, confusion all mixed together. You should have told us, she said softly. I know, he whispered, but I didn't deserve forgiveness. Eli tugged at his mother's sleeve. Mommy, he said, he didn't mean to. Rachel knelt beside her son. Sweetheart, he tried to protect us, Eli interrupted. He's sad too. She looked into her son's eyes, the same eyes that had seen too much for his age, and felt her anger falter. Visual cue. Slow zoom on mother and son embracing, officer watching with watery eyes. Later that evening, as the courthouse emptied, the rain outside turned into a soft drizzle. The air smelled like wet concrete and something close to peace. Officer Brooks stepped out alone, his hat in his hands. Rachel and Eli walked past him toward the parking lot. For a moment, they stopped. Eli turned around. The boy walked up to the officer, the same little boy who'd pointed at him hours earlier. Visual cue, close up. Eli standing in front of Brooks, small against a tall man in uniform. Everyone nearby stopped to watch. Eli looked up and said, softly but clearly, I forgive you. Brooks froze. His eyes closed, his throat working to hold back tears. You shouldn't, he whispered. Eli shook his head. Daddy said we should forgive people, even when it's hard. Maybe that's how hearts heal. Rachel covered her mouth again, tears falling silently. Brooks knelt down slowly until he was eye level with the boy. You're braver than I'll ever be, he said. Eli reached out and handed him the small toy car his father used to fix that night, the one Brooks had picked up from evidence years ago and returned to Rachel during the trial. You dropped this, Eli said. Brooks looked at it, the chipped red paint, the bent wheels, and felt something crack inside him. Not guilt this time. Something else. Something lighter. He nodded, voice barely a whisper. Thank you, Eli. Visual cue. The two hands, small and large, exchanging the toy car under soft rain light. The camera of the imagination lingers on that image. The symbol of loss and redemption between a man and a child bound by tragedy. As Rachel and Eli walked away, the crowd that gathered outside the courthouse stayed silent, as if afraid to disturb the sacredness of that moment. Officer Brooks stood there for a long time, rain soaking his shoulders, holding that tiny car like it was the heaviest thing in the world, and the only thing keeping him standing. Months later, news broke that David Brooks, the missing twin, had been found in another state, dead from an overdose, still wearing a stolen badge. Evidence from his hideout cleared Daniel Brooks completely. The department issued a public apology, but none of it could undo what had happened. Still, every Sunday, Officer Brooks visited a small grave at Maplewood Cemetery. He brought two things, a single white lily and a small red toy car. Visual cue: cemetery at sunrise, officer kneeling by grave, toy car resting beside flower. And sometimes, not far away, a little boy watched from his mother's car, quietly, forgivingly, just to make sure the man who once took his father's life never forgot the lessons father had lived by, that even in the deepest kind of pain, there's room for mercy. The town of Maplewood never forgot that trial. They called it the case of the boy who forgave. And though time softened the edges of memory, one image remained. A courtroom frozen in silence, a trembling finger pointing at a man everyone thought they knew, and a small voice breaking the chains of anger with those simple words. "I forgive you, officer." Visual cue: final cinematic shot. Sunlight breaking through courthouse windows. The toy car glinting softly on a wooden bench. And that, more than any verdict or headline, was what left everyone speechless.